Hello viewers, and a warm welcome to the show this evening. I'm your host, Chef Andy, and as you can see, I've got a guest on the show today that some of you may have seen before in the recent past. But of course, before I begin the show, I will allow her to say a few words just to say hello, and we'll proceed and begin the show.
Thank you very much, Chef Andy. My name is Nasuju. I'm a model representing vitiligo in Kenya, and I'm also the chair lady of Royal Patches, and I'm also a mother of 4, and I'm also a DJ.
Perfect, Julie. Now, before we begin, I will of course introduce the ingredients that we'll be working with today. Just to mention, we are going to be making a very simple take on cream spinach, and we're going to be pairing that with some very simple turmeric rice. Now, from the very front, you will require 1 large carrot, chopped up very finely. You'll also require 1 stock cube, beef, chicken, or vegetable. You'll also require about 2 pieces of turmeric root, about a tablespoon of some soy sauce and some salt to season. You'll also require 1 large onion chopped finely, about 3/4 cup of basmati rice. You'll also require 1 cup of cream and 1 cup of regular milk, about 1 large bunch of regular local spinach, cleaned, washed and chopped finely as well. You'll also require some fresh parsley, some oil to cook with, some black peppercorns to crush, and last but not least, some water to aid you in steaming up your rice. But before we begin, we'll give you this chance to sit back, relax and unwind, and we'll catch you after a short break. And now at the point when your cream actually starts to come up to the boil, we'll pretty much proceed to add our spinach. And while we do so, I'll also mention that we do have a pot at the very end that's already got some boiling water. So what we're pretty much going to do is we're going to add some of the ingredients that we're going to be incorporating to our rice. Welcome back, viewers. If you're just getting time to tune into the show this evening, we began by introducing the guest with us on the show, Nasuju, who's someone that some of you have probably seen on the show before. We've also introduced the ingredients that we'll be working with, and we're going to begin very, very simply by cooking our rice. Now, to the very end at the station next to us, I've already got some water already on the boil. So all we're going to do is allow for the water to come to the boil, and then we'll proceed to steam the rice and incorporate the rest of the ingredients. But while we do so, we're going to start very simply by making our cream spinach. So we're going to begin by lighting up our burner at the end, at the closest end to us. And also very important to mention, this particular recipe can of course be altered very simply. You can of course be able to use kale in place of spinach. You can also be able to use Swiss chard if you can actually be able to get some. It's pretty much one of the most rarest ingredients in the city, but it is also a very superior product to spinach, and it really, really works quite well for this recipe. Now, before I begin, I'll ask Nasuju, have you worked with the turmeric root before?
No, I'm used to the powder.
Yeah. Now, very, very similar to the powder that I already have as well. Similar to the powder, it's of course a little bit costlier, so you may actually pay much more for the turmeric root. You can of course also be able to find fresh turmeric root at the regular markets. It is also one of the most rarest ingredients, but within the city, you may actually be able to find fresh turmeric root. I'm going to be using the dried variety for now. So this is similar to the fresh variety. The only variation is that this has actually been dried up, And all we're going to do is we're going to add it to the steaming water, and this is basically going to color the liquid before we proceed to add the rest of our ingredients. Right, imechemka?
Not yet.
Perfect. Right, so we're going to start off very, very simply by cooking up our spinach while we give our water time to just come to the boil. And we'll begin by adding some oil to our pan. Now, the reason why I'm cooking this on a pan is because I pretty much want the spinach to wilt very, very quickly. And it's also going to help us thicken the cream a little faster.
Okay.
Now, the only difference in cooking the spinach in a big pot like that as opposed to the pan will pretty much boil for a bit of time.
Yeah.
And what happens is the risk of overcooking the mixture can actually occur very, very simply. So the beautiful thing about using a pan is you pretty much will be able to evaporate the liquid a little faster, and the cream will actually thicken much quicker. Right, so we're going to start by sauteing some onions. So I'm just going to ask you to add those to our pan. Perfect. Now, of course, the beginning step is quite simple. All you need to do is begin by sweating your onions on a pan. You will, of course, encounter situations that your pan may actually be very, very dry, or the oil may not be sufficient. I will, of course, mention, do not be tempted to add any more oil to this, because what happens is as soon as your cream and your milk goes in there, you will actually have a lot of the oil floating right on the surface. So it's very important that you actually limit the amount of oil that you add at this stage. This is, of course, just to aid in making sure that your cream spinach at the end is not, of course, going to be too oily. Right, now to add to this, we're going to add 1 stock cube. And of course, very, very simply, on most occasions, you may not be able to dissolve this very quickly.
Yeah.
So we're going to add just a little bit of water, about half a cup. And all you need to do at this stage is allow the water to reduce as your stock cube continues to dissolve. And this is pretty much going to give you just enough time for you to be able to dissolve the cube fully and make sure that it actually combines with the onions and also flavor the dish. And make sure, of course, that the granules are also not sticking out. As many of you may know, if you don't actually dissolve your cube quite well, you may actually encounter chances of tasting it in the meal at the end. So be sure to dissolve it either in a hot pan, or you can actually mix it with a bit of hot water in a cup and then proceed to add to your pan. Now, of course, before we proceed with the show, very important that I remind you, viewers at home, that Nasuju is also a very renowned model here in the city. She's also very, very active in doing some beautiful charity work here in Nairobi. Maybe, Nasuju, you can give the viewers a little bit of the insight of how the charity and the modeling came to be.
Okay. First of all, I'll start by saying it's been 4 years down the line.
Okay.
Working as a model, representing vitiligo here in Kenya. And it's been a journey, and it's been quite a very interesting journey. For me, vitiligo is art. I take it as an art. Okay. Because it always changes from time to time. Every year, I'm not the same. The patterns change. Okay. And that's one thing most people don't know. Some people like me too. Why are you whiter than the other time? Why are you darker? That is how vitiligo is. It kind of plays along with the patterns. And for me, I took it as an interest to try and show it to the world, rather than putting it, trying to enclose yourself.
It's very, 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 very important.
So, except for that, I still do charity. And mainly, like right now, since I love food, and I met this group just this year. And it was very interesting to meet a few chefs who decided to do charity in a way of teaching kids how to cook these meals that are not affordable, especially for the children. So unless they're brought for by people from outside, they don't go buy it, or the people around their children homes don't take them to buy it. Like pizzas, burgers, buns, these are things you wouldn't expect they would know.
Yeah, and basically even with the budget that they have to restrain themselves to, they don't get to be spoiled enough to be able to see some of this.
Yeah, so this charity group actually goes to many children's homes. They make sure they buy an oven. And
so similar to just the oven that we have here in the kitchen, or maybe
the gas oven that has a 4-cooker and still has an oven, which is once they're taught how to make bread, then so that they can at least be able to, instead of buying bread from outside for
they can
all
at
the
least
children,
be
they can
self-sufficient
still
from
be
their very
baking
own
for
location.
themselves. Yes. Yes, an example is a children's home we went like 2 months ago in Kahawa West. And right now they are actually making bread and buns, and they are selling around their local area.
So basically, by you sharing the art of cooking with them, you're basically teaching them to be self-sufficient and also to be able to make money to survive.
Yes.
That's actually a very, very good idea. Very, very nice.
And it's quite interesting. Like you meet kids who are different. There are some who are interested in cooking. You find when you go to the children, there's one who's very concentrated on it, and some are not concentrated. But my advice would be when they're going for the children's home, we're actually looking for people who can mentor them in other things.
That's true.
Like cars, how you can dismantle it and keep them back. It's kind of basic knowledge that kind of will help this child to grow up.
And it's the basics that they also miss out on without the presence of their parents around them. Yes.
Since they don't have parents, most of them don't have parents, it's kind of something that you will feel good teaching these people and these kids, and they'll grow up remembering you.
It's true.
Saying this,
and
I
they may
learned
actually be able to survive on their own with this little bit of skills that they learn.
Yeah, and that's why I was telling, instead of giving them food, why don't you teach them how to get this food?
And they can actually just make it easier, and they can actually learn from it with experience, being that they're in a home, and they may, of course, not get enough time to move around and actually be exposed to these products out there. Yeah.
So basically, yes, that is it. Except for that, I've been in many events, which for me it's kind of an eye opener in so many things. Considering vitiligo, when you meet up with people with this condition, they are very reserved people. They're not people who will come out, and this is because of the discrimination they've gone through their life. The way people stare at them and the stigma, it kind of secludes them from the world. They feel
like they're different.
From everyone, and instead of embracing it to the better, they embrace it in a way that they diminish themselves. So basically, why I chose to model was to show the world you don't need to diminish yourself.
And you don't actually have to struggle to look like everybody else.
Just be yourself, and do your work.
Brand, be your own product.
If someone doesn't appreciate how God made you, that's their problem. It's not your problem. It shouldn't disturb you psychologically.
That's very, very important to mention. Actually, for some of the viewers at home, if you do actually have any particular stigmas that are facing you out there, or any particular skin disorders or even health disorders that pretty much marginalize you from the community, as Judy has said, it's pretty much a matter of just standing up to yourself or just taking charge on your own. And maybe you can also share with them maybe ways they can be able to join the movement that you've formed, maybe if there is a way that they can try out. And maybe there's also people out there who are maybe keen on trying out different other many other ventures in the career world. So when you come to vitiligo, you can find us through your page Vitiligo is Beautiful or Royal Patches Foundation. Either of the two, you can find us. That is me and my partner and other people, but mainly you'll find me and Honorable Wangoinje, who for me I call her my twin because we tend to look alike. I know there are many people who ask that question, why is it you? They kind of confuse us in a way. So they may not be able to tell who's who.
You can tell through the height. Because I'm tall and
taller.
She's kind of shorter a little bit. And also how she deals with the political and advocacy side, and I deal on the modeling and entertainment side. That's my side. And also the cooking, we share both. Because she's also a foodie as well. Yeah, she's also a foodie. She's not a cook, but she loves cooking a little bit, just trying out at home and all that. Except that the charity thing that we're doing about the chefs and the cooking and going to children's home, you can find us teach a child how to fish, or you can look for this chef, who's called Chef Philip Hecker, and he will guide you through how you can donate, maybe how you can reach out to us, how you can, if you want to join us when you're going to the children's home, just reach out to Chef Philip Hecker.
And through this, is it possible to find you on social media under the same names?
Yes, you can Facebook, still find me on my social media platform, all the social media platforms through Julie Nasuju. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram with the same name. Yes. Perfect.
Now, just to bring us back to the show, we've pretty much finished sorting out our onions. We added a bit of stock cube to it. And now at the point when your cream actually starts to come up to the boil, we'll pretty much proceed to add our spinach. And while we do so, I'll also mention that we do have a pot at the very end that's already got some boiling water. So what we're pretty much going to do is we're going to add some of the ingredients that we're going to be incorporating to our rice. And I'll begin the process by adding the carrots, the turmeric root, a bit of salt, and a small dash of oil. This is of course to make sure that your rice granules are actually beautifully colored, and it actually gives them a nice beautiful appearance on the plate. So very, very important that I mention, especially if you're going to be incorporating such ingredients as vegetables to your rice. Be sure that if you're going to be using root vegetables, which is of course anything in relation to carrots, courgettes or potatoes, that you actually allow them to steam up very, very briefly before adding your rice, because these actually are ingredients that do actually need to steam up very, very briefly, and the rice may actually cook much faster. So by adding this first, it will of course make sure that you actually get the consistency right and that you also don't overcook your vegetables. So we're going to begin by adding our carrots to the mixture. Now this is basically just a carrot that's finely chopped up. As I mentioned, there's many other ingredients you can try out. You could of course include a bit of onions to that, a bit of leeks, celery, any particular vegetable of choice. You can of course also use such ingredients as frozen peas or anything similar to that, but very important to also remember, if you're of course going to be adding vegetables that are not pre-cooked, do allow for them to cook very, very briefly, because the rice is of course going to cook much faster. And now to that, we're also going to add our turmeric root. Now the beautiful thing about adding them in their whole size is basically we can be able to remove them at the end of the process, or as soon as the water begins to color. So we're just going to allow that to continue to simmer right through. And just to bring you back to the spinach, as I mentioned, the milk will of course continue to reduce gradually as you continue with the cooking process. Very important to mention that your heat should be at the lowest possible temperature. This is of course to make sure that you don't actually reduce your liquid too quickly. Now all we need to do is proceed to add our cream. So you can add that and give it a quick mix. And of course, one particular beautiful ingredient that I like to incorporate into spinach is a bit of soy sauce. So this is light soy. Beautiful thing about this, it's actually a very good substitute to using regular salt, because it does have the iodine consistency, or the iodine kind of flavor to it. It also brings a very, very beautiful flavor once combined with cream and milk, and as it continues to reduce, it's also going to continue to flavor the mixture as it continues. But before we proceed to add the rest of our ingredients, I will of course give you this chance to take a quick and short break. But when we do come back, I will take you through the process of finishing off the rice at the very end by incorporating the rice that's left over and a bit of the fresh parsley that we are going to be chopping up very shortly. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. So I'm just going to begin by serving our spinach into a bowl. I'm going to be serving this in two separate plates just for you to be able to see the different consistencies and the colors and the textures. Welcome back, viewers. If you're just tuning in, you've pretty much missed out on what we've done today, but do remember you can be able to catch up or recap on this and many more that we've done on our dinner guide show by subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's BrandPlus TV Kenya. And remember, if you're also very eager and willing to actually share your comments, your suggestions, or any particular queries, you can also be able to write back to us through our Facebook page. That's BrandPlus TV Kenya as well. But just to recap on what we've been doing on the show, we pretty much finished making our creamed spinach that's already on the boil. We're pretty much just finishing that off. But I will of course divert your attention to the end where we're pretty much going to finish off our rice. And remember, for some of you who are also tuning in, maybe if you didn't get the guest's name on the show today, her name is Julie Nasuju. Nasuju, right?
Yes, Nasuju.
Yes, Nasuju. She's, of course, someone that you may, of course, have maybe passed or walked past in town, maybe, or at an event. I will, of course, allow her to just remind you something or give you something to remember about what she does. And she'll, of course, also be able to recap on some of the beautiful things that she's busy and active in doing in this beautiful city of ours. Now, we're pretty much going to just finish off the rice now. The carrots are pretty much softened up completely. So we're going to begin by adding a small pinch of salt. And we're also going to be adding in our rice. So I'm only going to be using about 3/4 cups of regular basmati rice. So Julie, you can actually give that a quick mix. And while you do so, I'm also going to be incorporating our fresh parsley. So I'm just going to quickly chop that up very, very finely. And I'm going to be adding to that about 2 tablespoons of parsley. This can, of course, be very overpowering. So very, very important that you're very, very vigilant in making sure that you don't actually have too much in there. It can actually also overcolor the rice. And as we allow that to come to the boil, I'm pretty much going to turn off the cream, or turn the temperature very, very low for the cream spinach, and allow this to continue to simmer on very, very low heat for anywhere between 5 to 10 more minutes, just to allow the mixture to thicken completely. But as I do so, maybe Nasuju, you can share with us something maybe in relation to your diet. I know maybe some of you out there may be curious to find out as to what kind of meals or what kind of nutritional values that you look for in food. Maybe you can share some of those pointers with us.
Okay. One, I cannot say that I do follow the diet fully for me. But one thing I know is most important for a model, water and fruits. For me, being a picture model, I check out what helps me with my skin. And that also, I check out even for my skin condition, vitiligo. There are some things which can help you to return your color, especially the pigmentation part. That's a lot of greens, just as in plants.
So basically, we're talking about just vegetable greens or any particular greens of...
Greens, most greens like the kienyeji mbogas, the managus, kunde, and all
What
this.
about salads?
And yes,
salads as
very,
well,
very, very important.
Very, very important.
Very important. And also the arrows, cassava, those things that most people ignore.
Most of the organic meals that we, of course,
broccoli and all. Most people there's some people who ignore it and they say this food is yucky and all that. But these are the things that kind of help you keep a perfect diet. Okay. Yes.
And then is there, maybe I can also interrupt you by asking, is there any particular meals that you maybe tend to stay away from as in relation to vitiligo? Are there things that you are pretty much stopped from eating completely?
Of late I've noticed, but the one thing about vitiligo, there are different types of vitiligo. So basically,
actually it's a good point to share with the viewers at home.
Basically, there is different types of vitiligo. One being what I have is called vulgaris vitiligo. That is scattered patterns all over the body, and they change from time to time. And there is segmental vitiligo, which affects one side. It can either choose the left side or the right side,
and it would only affect
one side, and it will not touch the other side at all. And there is focal vitiligo, which focuses on one point where it is, and it will not move. It will just be there. It will just grow there around that area only. And then there's universal vitiligo, which starts as small as it starts like my scattered patterns. Vitiligo basically starts with a small dot, and then it progresses slowly. And one after that, there is now the universal vitiligo, which Michael Jackson had. That is one thing I need to specify. So basically it started small and then it grew. It came to my scattered patterns and then maybe it progressed to, because there's also another one called acrofacial vitiligo. But this is vitiligo that affects the face, the hands and the legs only. It will not touch the center part of the body. And then now there is the mixture of this vulgaris and semi-acrofacial vitiligo.
Okay.
It mixes up. You find someone, their hands are white, the legs are white, and their face is white, but still has some patterns.
A bit of
now
patterns
these
on the
scattered
skin.
patterns like this is what you get.
Okay.
You get from it.
Okay.
And then now you have the universal vitiligo. This is someone who started small and then it went full bloom. The
Wow,
person
that's
becomes
very,
white
very handy
and very
information.
small spots of vitiligo. So depending on what type of vitiligo you have, that's how you deal with it.
It calls for different ways of dealing with it.
Yes.
And then maybe also for the ones that are maybe viewers that are going through the same thing or different cases of vitiligo. Is there any particular special care that you take, or precautions that you take on your skin particularly?
Yes.
Maybe creams or...
Basically, I can say the sun is not your friend
Okay.
when you have vitiligo. So basically, your skin is very light. Melanin helps us to deal with the sun. That's why Africans are very lucky to have melanin skin. You can be able to handle with the sun. But someone like you see, as you can see, even the whites when they come to Kenya, they kind of, or in Africa, or even where they are, they struggle with the sun rays.
Yeah,
now
with the
you
European
need to deal.
Skin,
Yes,
it does change quite quickly, and
quickly
it gets
becomes
flaky.
red
Yes.
and all that. So you need to have sunscreen. It's just the same thing.
Okay.
Either it's albinism, whether it's vitiligo, whether you're a white. So long as you don't have this deep dark melanin, you kind of have a problem. You have to deal with the sun.
Okay.
So basically, you need to have sunscreen to deal with the heat and also the sun rays. And also there's a session, especially, let me talk about here in Kenya, when you're going to Kenyatta Hospital, there you can get phototherapy sessions.
Okay.
Now these phototherapy sessions, it's a light rays, it's a machine that has light rays, which help you you stay there in an hour, it helps you to deal with the sun.
Okay.
So that
what
it doesn't
happens?
burn you.
Does it
one thing,
empower your skin in a way?
Yes, because one thing about the sun rays, you can get skin cancer very quickly. So if you don't take care of your skin very well, you'll end up having skin cancer.
And this is, of course, in relation to maybe not heeding to maybe the doctor's instructions of watching your interaction with the sun and heat and stuff like that.
And except that, when you have vitiligo, try as much as possible to be stress-free.
Okay.
Because also stress triggers it to spread like wildfire.
So is this the reason why you enjoy being jovial and happy? Because it's actually part and parcel of
it's part and
taking care of yourself.
Yes, it's part and parcel of taking care of yourself.
Okay.
The more you're moody, you don't want to see people, you're always annoyed, and you don't want to deal with the condition that you have. That comes to the part of accepting yourself.
That's very, very important.
Which is very important.
The
minute you accept yourself, the minute you start healing. You have to heal from inside, so that it can show
on the outside. So it's pretty much like many of the conditions that any particular sick person goes through.
Yes.
Just the same thing, we are pretty much instructed to take care or maybe take time and rest, be active in sports, be outgoing, try out sports and
also,
stuff like that.
Another thing I noticed, this is not just by me, but the group we have for vitiligo, and most people kind of get tired very quickly. I'm not sure why exactly, but when I look about the people who have vitiligo, they get tired very quickly, and they are judged like they are lazy and all that, but this is something inborn. It's inside your body. So that's why I'm saying first start by accepting yourself. You see, when you're frustrated so much about how you look, it triggers it, and then at the same time your body is reacting in a different way. So now the melanin kind of disappears very fast. You become white very quickly. Within a span of 1 year, you can turn white.
So you pretty much have to be very vigilant on what you
positive.
eat.
Fasting,
make
positive,
sure the exposure to sun
eat.
is limited.
Yes.
Very,
make sure
very
you have a
important
hat,
point.
sunscreen, shades, all these things. Try and avoid too much direct sunlight, and you'll be good. And in case you need sunscreen, you can still reach out to us. Make sure you go to Vitiligo is Beautiful page and just inbox us. You'll get your sunscreen. My partner will make sure she has delivered it to you. That is Honorable Wangoinja. And she'll make sure you get your sunscreen.
And maybe just
and
to
that you
add
get
to
it free from the government and also from Nivea.
And just to add to that, is this assistance nationwide, or is this just for
Nationwide,
people in the
actually
city?
East Africa.
East Africa.
Yes.
So for some of you who are very, very keen on following up on such details as to what Nasuju has mentioned on the show,
Yeah.
as she mentioned, you can be able to reach out to her organization, or you can actually reach out to her, and she may actually be able to point you in the right direction. For some of you as well who may be sitting at home and maybe you're pretty much maybe dumbfounded and you're really, really sad and maybe really feeling like you're out of bounds, or maybe you're not in your best of capabilities. As she mentioned, it's only a matter of taking care of yourself. And as she mentioned as well, something that I've actually taken from you from the show today, the healing actually starts from the inside.
And then it will show.
And it actually shows on the outside.
Yes.
Thank you very much for those
pointers. It
pointers.
doesn't matter whether
Nasuju.
it's vitiligo or any other
particular
condition.
condition.
Any
or
condition
illness.
or illness. It starts from you.
Okay.
Inside.
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
it will show outside.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. For some of you, or for those of you who've been tuning in, I hope you've managed to get some beautiful pointers. For those of you who did not know of this condition, I'm hoping you can actually be able to share with people out there. And as we also mentioned on the show, there's a lot of stigmatization in the community. For some of you who may also be feeling like you're left out, as I mentioned, and as Nasuju has mentioned as well, do reach out to her organization, do reach out to some of the beautiful icons that she mentioned. And as she also added at the very end, if you're actually also maybe not in the city, maybe you're very far out of the city, remember the assistance does actually cover you nationwide. And as you said, the medication is also free from the government.
Yeah, not the medication, the sunscreen,
is free.
The medication is quite expensive. And due to that, I advise people just start by as I've said, healing starts from inside.
Healing starts from inside.
The minute you start healing inside, even when you go for those medicines, first you need to accept you have this condition. And then when you look for the medication, it will actually even help you heal very fast.
That's true.
Since you've already accepted
that
it.
you've accepted
But if
it
you're
as a
struggling
condition.
with it, it will also struggle with you.
All right. So for those of you watching, I hope you've managed to pick something fresh and new from the show. But of course, I will bring you back to what we are pretty much finishing up. Now, our rice is pretty much almost done, so I'm just going to take the lid off and just allow that excess water to completely reduce. But as we do so, I'm of course going to proceed by plating the cream spinach, which is of course complete. So very, very simply, you can proceed to give that a quick mix. Very important to also mention, especially if you're going to be using soy sauce, try and avoid adding any more salt, because it actually does have quite a very strong iodine consistent flavor to it. So I'm just going to begin by serving our spinach into a bowl. I'm going to be serving this in 2 separate plates just for you to be able to see the different consistencies and the colors and the textures. I'm also going to mention at this stage, you can of course be sure to actually save some of the cream if you are going to be making something similar to this, maybe in a 2 or 3 day period.
Yeah.
And of course, if you also have a lot of the cream left over in the mixture, such as the one we have, you can also be able to freeze that and probably use it in a 2 or 3 day period. And this can actually be able to last in the refrigerator for up to 3 or 4 days.
Serious?
Yes, now, but it's still also very important to mention, if you're also going to be storing this, very important that you actually take precaution in making sure that you use clean utensils. For the fact that you're using dairy products, it can actually be contaminant. It can actually be very easily contaminated. So very, very important to mention, or any particular dishes that you may actually want to prepare and maybe serve or consume a day or 2 days after the day of preparation, always be sure to use clean utensils. Make sure your hands are clean. Make sure your vegetables are properly washed. For instance, for the local spinach, some of us actually tend to forget to actually wash our spinach and make sure that they're actually free from worms or any particular sun particles. So always be sure to keep your hygiene, keep the hygiene factor carrying through right through the process. And you'll of course be able to make sure that you're also not going to be able to transfer the bacteria through and through as you continue to enjoy preparing your meals. Now, once of course this is done, we're only going to now proceed to serve our rice. So I'll just ask you to turn that off completely. And I'll ask you to just scoop just a little bit of the rice. I just pretty much want you viewers to be able to get an insight of the beautiful colors. I'm also going to be serving that on a separate plate. This is of course just to give you an idea of what to expect when working with turmeric and such ingredients such as carrots and fresh parsley. And basically the idea behind it is to give you an insight of how beautiful you can be able to channel the different techniques that you're already preparing your rice at home. And as I'm always mentioned on the show, or even in the recent past, sometimes it does really get dull when you serve plain white rice on your dinner tables. So this is of course also a very, very beautiful way of making sure that, or ensuring that the dish actually does stand out and that it actually looks appetizing to your guests. Now we have of course come to the last and final part of the show, where I will thank you once more for tuning in. And Nasuju, thank you very much for joining us on the show once more.
Thank you much for having
But
me.
I will of course leave you guys with a very, very simple reminder, which I will allow you to do as always by reminding them how they can be able to be part and parcel of our show.
So you can reach out to Chef Andy
Uh-huh.
by the 5-digit codes you can see down there on the screen. And also make sure when you reach out to him, make sure you write your name, the food you want to cook, and where you're from.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now with that, we leave you with a humble, very humble goodbye. And until the next episode, do stay blessed, and do remember, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do make a point of subscribing. And for some of you who may of course have any particular questions, queries, or any particular suggestions pertaining the show, we're always more than happy to hear from you. You can be able to reach out to us through our Facebook page. That's BrandPlus TV Kenya as well. But from us at Studios, we are basically saying a very warm goodbye to you all. Do have a blessed evening and see you soon.